Could we be eating tomato puree made with forced labour? The BBC has had dozens of supermarket tomato products tested in the lab. The results suggest that we could be.
These Chinese tomatoes were everywhere.
Tracing the route they take to get into our shops. Hearing from those forced to work the fields of China. Going undercover in a factory in Italy and exposing the risks of forced labour.
If there's any supermarket now claiming they didn't know, that is an absolute farce.
Could our supermarkets be ending up with blood on the shelves? China now grows about a third of the world's tomatoes, and the vast majority of those in its Xinjiang region.
The tomato industry in Xinjiang is absolutely huge. We've got satellite imagery showing all of the tomatoes laid out to dry, and it's spectacular. And yet there's a dark side to this industry.
Mamatjan says he was arrested in 2015 because he failed to submit a document to police.
Uyada men bir 40 neç gün uyada şoğul tədim məcburi. Mən birinci qitimliqda 250 kilodan tiysən dedi. 250 kilo bar tiyəmsən cəzalayımız bilgənsən ağalanırıq dedi. Ətsi 250 kilo yan tiyəmli. Mənim bir ispi qatqudi. Qaranğı bir türmününki içində Torusqa isalıq bir tömüylər varkən aşınanğa astı zaten qatqırağay qılğan bulab ketdim. 250 kilolarnıken kündün güngə aşıdı, axırı 600 kilo, 650 kilo qədər çıxadı ular.
14 people from Muslim minority groups have told us they've endured or witnessed forced labour in Xinjiang's tomato industry over the last 16 years. It's hard to verify their accounts, but they are consistent.
3 yıl kesildim. Dinni tərbiyələdim, Quran öyrətdi dedi. Bir adamın 46 şoxlanıb yığış vəzifəsi var. Eğer iş qilsa yıqılıb düşüdigan, aylanıb ketadigan. 3 qatim aylanıb ketdim, burnum qanadı, yıqılıb düşkən işlərim bolaqlıq. Hətta can üzüdigan, çatdıq yox onda işlər bilan.
Following riots by Uyghurs protesting repression by the Chinese state, there were increasing crackdowns on what China called religious extremism.
The region was turned into a police state, especially starting in 2017. We had a campaign of mass internment.
More than 1 million are thought to have been detained in Xinjiang after 2017. That's nearly 1 in 25 of the population. Former detainees say they were forced to work in factories and farms attached to the camps. And Ahmed says he was forced to work in similar circumstances years earlier.
Hamdulillah, ama çetel götkeydiganligimizni dedi, dep jazalar bekçi yaqin. Bizde her xil qistaq qaladı onu. Şuna qıldırış üçün bizde mesela tokluq diyanbanğı yaqıdı. Buldum alaqıq uyga putumuzdan qolumuzga ko'zini selish orqali o't tag'izib qo'ydim. Shu uyning o'zida yenimizga bir chelak qo'yib birdi, tarat qildigan.
Despite reports of detention centers closing, the UN warns there are still significant risks of forced labor in Xinjiang today.
There are 2 systems of forced labor. One is linked to the internment camps and to prisons, and the other one is the transfer of Uyghurs to work in factories and fields enforced by officials.
It's very difficult to assess the nature and scale of forced labor in Xinjiang, but some academics have tried.
My estimate is that up to 2.5 million ethnic group members in Xinjiang are in forms of forced labor. Several 100,000 are involved against their will in producing tomatoes.
China says such claims are lies and there is no forced labor in Xinjiang. But in 2021, the US introduced strict legislation banning all Xinjiang imports. In Europe, they take a softer approach. Countries like Germany and the UK allow companies to self-regulate to ensure forced labour isn't used in supply chains. UK supermarkets, including Tesco and Asda, told Parliament in 2021 they'd instructed suppliers to stop sourcing from Xinjiang.
What supermarkets were saying is that they had identified there was this risk of Uyghur forced labour in their tomato supply chain. I mean, supermarkets knew about it.
The question is, after this 2021 parliamentary inquiry where they said they would go and talk to their suppliers, did they actually do it?
We've been investigating one state-owned Chinese tomato company that we suspect is still shipping to Europe, Xinjiang Guanong.
There were these sanctions in place, and yet we know that China continues to produce vast amounts of tomatoes. Where are those tomatoes going?
We've spent a year piecing together shipping data from around the world.
We discovered that there are special trains which take the tomatoes, and a special train line that has been built from China, passing through Kazakhstan, going across the Caspian Sea through Azerbaijan and into Georgia, where they were handled by a shipping company who sent them onwards to Italy.
The Petit Group is a major Italian tomato processor. It proudly showcases its product as being all Italian in adverts. To find out whether it's using Chinese tomatoes, an undercover reporter is posing as a businessman wanting to place a large order of tomato products.
We are just producing only good or top quality.
But all the paste is produced in Italy. Yes?
Depends. No. If you want Italian, we put Italian. But
Okay.
this way it's more expensive.
Yes.
Depends on you.
Yeah, nothing from China. You don't get any cheap ones.
But if for you it's okay, we will find a way to produce the best price possible, even using Chinese tomatoes.
The Petit Group later told us they have not bought from Xinjiang Guanong since they were sanctioned by the US for forced labour in 2020. But our camera captured a dozen blue barrels, and one labelled Xinjiang Guanong, produced in 2023.
Let me know.
Thank you, Pascal.
Thank you for the visit.
Shipping data shows that between 2020 and 2023, Guanong and its subsidiaries sent more than 36 million kilos of tomato paste to the Petit Group.
We know that Petit produce goods for supermarkets across Europe, who then sell them as their own branded products. What we don't know is whether they're selling Chinese tomatoes to supermarkets. And if they are, where are they going?
We've enlisted a world-renowned forensic testing company to test tomato purees made by Petit and other manufacturers in the lab. They'll be compared in a lab to samples from China.
We're going to investigate the claim of origin that's on the packaging. Trace element analysis can give an indication as to where a product has come from. What we use that analysis for is to build a pattern or a fingerprint which are unique to the country of origin.
64 tomato purees have been tested, from top Italian brands to supermarket own brand products in the UK, Germany, and the US. They'll be compared in a lab to samples from China.
For months we had been investigating Petit, but it was so shocking to get the results back from that testing. Some of the tomato paste was very likely Chinese tomatoes, which is something that we strongly suspected, but to have it confirmed was incredible.
Some of the Petit-made products sold in the UK and Germany give the impression they're Italian. Tesco's Italian tomato puree has an Italian flag on the outside, but appears to be Chinese on the inside. It's the same story with Waitrose Essential Tomato Puree, and this is legal because supermarkets don't have to specify where the tomatoes themselves come from. But the legality of others is in question.
We also found the number of products where there was clear claims on the packaging that it was Italian tomatoes, where we were only able to associate the tomato paste with that of a Chinese source or origin.
Asda's organic and own-labelled tomato purees say they're made with Italian-grown tomatoes. And these products from German supermarkets Penny and Rewe also appear to contain Chinese tomatoes, despite claiming they're Italian.
Do you mean that Chinese tomatoes are labeled as Italian tomatoes? Wow. Yeah. That is a big news to me. If those latter products contain tomato of a different origin, that is a food fraud.
All the supermarkets and manufacturers we've investigated dispute our findings, and some said their testing conflicted with ours. But we found 17 products appearing to contain Chinese tomatoes.
Like, these Chinese tomatoes seem to be everywhere. These are, the biggest supermarkets in the UK and the biggest supermarkets in Europe. Even though the tomatoes that we tested have a profile consistent with Chinese tomatoes, and doesn't say Xinjiang, because Petty is buying directly from the companies in Xinjiang, we can be fairly confident that some of these tomatoes are made with forced labour.
Anti-slavery campaigners believe the risks of forced labour are well known.
I've had phone calls with supermarkets in 2020 about this, in 2021, about tomatoes and many other products as well. So if there's any company now, any supermarket now in 2024 claiming they didn't know, that is an absolute farce. They should know, and they did know.
The nature of the culpability of the supermarkets is something that we need to answer. Are they being misled? Are they misleading us?
O kelgen siri şokuldan şunda nimqiyon nepretli men şokuldaki günah emas. O Xitaylarniki zulüm işçilam bir vasıta dep qarayman. Hazırım davamlaşıyotdu bizni yaşlarning, o'tir yoshlarning, cho'nglarninki, yaşangan ata-onalarimizniki ishlayotganligini, ya'ni kuchli qurolliq besim majburiy ishlayotganligini his qildim. Azoblandim.